Welcome to Anwar. Today we're talking about Anwar's major budget statements, specifically those concerning national identity and language policy for 2026.
Yeah, and this wasn't just some minor point buried in the details.
No,
It-
definitely not. This was the Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim, really laying out a fundamental piece of national policy.
And tying the status of the Malay language directly to the nation's, well, its financial planning and future direction.
I feel like a very strong signal.
It signals a top-tier priority, absolutely. I think for listeners, what jumps out right away is the commitment, the clear statement that the Ministry of Education will keep enforcing Malay as the main academic language
Right across the board.
across the entire system. We're talking primary schools all the way up through, all national courses.
Okay, so let's try and unpack that commitment a little. It seemed to go way beyond just curriculum rules.
It did.
Anwar was quite explicit, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Positioning the Malay language as, well, not just how we communicate day to day.
Exactly. He framed it as the core of our national identity, functioning as the key vehicle for national thought. It's quite profound.
It sounds almost like ideology being woven directly into policy.
Precisely. And what's fascinating there is that ideological foundation. The policy is basically saying that Malay carries knowledge, it carries culture, and crucially, it carries national unity.
So is reinforcing its role beyond just the classroom.
Way beyond. It's presented as a tool for, well, accelerated nation building, emphasizing that this quality, this connection, needs to be nurtured constantly in every single citizen.
The government seems to see linguistic skill in Malay as fundamentally linked to being a sort of fully integrated, thoughtful Malaysian citizen.
That's the message. Inseparable.
Okay, but that raises the stakes quite high, doesn't it? Especially when you think about, the economic pressures, the global focus many parents have today, particularly parents choosing maybe non-national schools. It brings up that big question. How does the government actually plan to enforce this, especially across different types of schools?
Well, that's always been the sticking point, hasn't it? Compliance.
Historically, yes.
And that seems to be exactly why this policy tries to tighten up enforcement. It specifically calls out international schools.
Ah, okay. So they're focusing there.
Yes. The government observation highlighted a very specific area of concern, what they called the negligence of Malay instruction, and also national identity education within these international schools.
Negligence. That's strong language.
It is, and they put a number on it, too. They identified 249 of these institutions where teaching the national language seems to be, well, either overlooked or maybe just treated as completely optional for Malaysian students.
Wow, 249 schools. That's a really significant number. It suggests more than just a few isolated cases, maybe a systemic gap.
That seems to be the government's interpretation, yes. For many looking at this, these schools might symbolize a kind of growing elite linguistic separation.
Where maybe future leaders could lack that core cultural grounding needed to, truly lead a unified nation. Is that the fear?
That's likely part of the thinking. But you raise a critical tension there. Historically, really strict language enforcement. While sometimes it's led to concerns about capital flight, or maybe discouraged international schools from setting up shop here.
Exactly. So doesn't this kind of firm approach risk impacting Malaysia's attractiveness as a regional education hub?
It's a valid concern, and I think that's why the government perhaps tried to be quite surgical in the mandate itself.
Okay, so what is the actual directive then?
The directive is very clear. It's framed as non-negotiable. International schools must ensure that all their Malaysian students receive education in both the Malay language and in national identity studies.
All Malaysian students specifically.
Yes. The risk you mentioned about being an education hub, that's being weighed against what they see as the priority, safeguarding national identity.
Okay, so what's the teeth behind it? What's the enforcement mechanism? Is it just like a fine or something?
No, it seems more direct than that. The mechanism is tied straight to their operations, their business. This mandate essentially links the school's permission to enroll local Malaysian students directly to whether they adhere to these national curriculum standards for language and identity.
Ah, so if they don't comply.
They potentially can't serve the local market, at least not Malaysian citizens. It basically requires these schools, whatever their international curriculum might be, to integrate this national identity requirement.
Ensuring that choosing an international education path doesn't mean detaching from core national values.
That's the stated goal.
That's certainly using the highest leverage point they have, tying it to enrollment. Okay, so if that's the stick, is there a carrot too? That brings us to the symbolic side. Under the government's Madani concept, the announcement about restoring the Language Award.
Yes, the Language Award, that restoration carries quite a bit of symbolic weight.
For listeners maybe not familiar, the Madani concept itself is that framework emphasizing things like sustainability, compassion, respect.
Trust, and importantly here, dignity and excellence. So, bringing back the Language Award, which maybe had lapsed or lost some of its prominence.
It's not just another prize then.
No, it symbolizes that commitment to strengthening Malay, framing it as a sign of the nation's civilizational dignity and excellence. It fits perfectly within that Madani philosophy they're promoting.
So it's an attempt to boost the prestige, the desirability of the language, moving it beyond just being a compulsory subject.
To something seen as an achievement worthy of national honor, of high-level official recognition.
Right, trying to elevate it.
Exactly. It sends that message. Linguistic mastery in Malay is valued right at the top of government. It's an attempt to shift the cultural perception around proficiency.
Okay, but let's bring it back to the practical reality for a moment. Malaysia is still competing globally.
Of course.
And many key industries, tech, finance, international trade, they demand really strong English communication skills. So with this renewed, intense focus on Malay, what's being done to ensure Malaysian students don't lose ground internationally?
That's the balancing act, isn't it? And the policy seems very aware of that necessity. The government appears to be aiming for a kind of dual mastery approach.
Dual mastery, meaning proficiency in both.
Yes. While strengthening Malay is framed as the priority for unity and identity, the policy also states the national education system must simultaneously ensure adequate teaching and prioritization of English proficiency.
Starting early.
Right, from the primary school level, yes. It's presented as a response to current economic and educational needs.
Is that just sort of a philosophical aim, or are there actual concrete initiatives mentioned backed by the budget?
Well, it's framed as highly pragmatic. The policy uses the word prioritization, which usually implies dedicated resources and curriculum focus.
Okay.
It's an explicit recognition that for economic competitiveness, for access to global knowledge, strong English skills are, frankly, indispensable.
So the budget is meant to support both.
That seems to be the intention, to facilitate achieving real linguistic mastery in both languages. Malay for culture, identity, unity, and English for global engagement and the economy. It's an attempt, really, to build a truly bilingual national competency.
But one clearly rooted in national values first, without sacrificing that global access.
That appears to be the tightrope they're trying to walk.
So bringing this all together, what does this really mean for you, the listener, and I guess for the nation moving forward?
Well, the 2026 budget isn't just about allocating funds. It's fundamentally restating the priority of the Malay language.
As a tool for unity, for identity.
Exactly. And specifically targeting compliance, clamping down on those 249 international schools mentioned, but at the same time acknowledging that critical role English plays for global competitiveness.
It really does sound like a very high-wire act, trying to balance both.
It is. And the immediate focus now has to be on implementation, right? How quickly can the Ministry of Education actually enforce this mandatory instruction across all those non-compliant international schools?
And how will they measure it? What metrics will they use for proficiency, for adherence? That's going to be key.
Absolutely. It's a policy that has a direct impact on, well, pretty much every Malaysian family with school-age children. It dictates, to some extent, the cultural orientation of their education, regardless of which school type they end up choosing.
It definitely gives us a lot to think about. And I suppose the core question this budget really throws up is whether mandating language is truly the same as instilling pride in it.
That's a deep question.
We've seen the enforcement hammer being brought out, but can a government really legislate identity in the long run? Something to ponder. Remember to like and subscribe for more conversations and insights like this.